What do you get when you mix a deranged bootlegger and alligators? You, my friends, get the Butcher of Elmendorf. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and today we're going to be talking about Joseph Douglas Ball, or Joe Ball. He has many other aliases, but the Butcher of Elmendorf is a man named Joe Ball. He is known as one of the first modern serial killers in Texas history. This case is widely known over Texas, but it's not so much known for the rest of the world. This case inspired the movie Eaten Alive that came out in 1976. Now, who was Joe Ball? Joe Ball was born on the 7th of January of 1896 in San Antonio, Texas. He was born to Frank and Elizabeth Ball, and he was their second child. Now, Frank Ball was wealthy and helped incorporate the town of Elmendorf. And he was very wealthy in the cotton business that was booming there. Now, also, what's good to know, too, is that Joe Ball was the 2 times great-grandson of John Hart Crenshaw, who was notoriously known, and he was a notorious illegal slave trader, kidnapper, and illegal slave breeder that lived in Gallatin County, Illinois. Now, Joe had a seemingly normal childhood, very seemingly normal childhood, but he would change after he would go and serve in World War I. So, he ended up serving on the front lines in Europe when he was in World War I. And after he returned in 1919, he wasn't the same as many other men were. This was very normal at the time because people were bound to change after seeing such horrific things happen, especially if you're going to be seeing a whole bunch of people like die in front of you, you're killing people, you're going to change. So Joe would end up working for his dad for a little while, but that didn't really work out. So Joe decided to open up his own business, and he started bootlegging. If you don't know what bootlegging basically is when you are selling alcohol to those who want it, even though it's illegal, because this happened during Prohibition in the 1920s. And after Prohibition ended in 1933, this is when he opens a saloon or a tavern named the Sociable Inn in Elmendorf. So it was said that Joe was pretty much a working man like his father. He was a very good businessman. He had quite the plethora of barmaids or women that needed jobs that he would employ. And also he would help a lot of the men that would come through Elmendorf find a job. So he was very good at helping others get what they needed to. So this is during the Great Depression. So the Great Depression is ruining the economy. So Joe tried to find different ways to make money off of his business. And with this is when he creates a giant pond back for his alligators, like a giant pit that turns into a pond. Now, he got his alligators from the lakes that are connected by the San Antonio River, and it's not very far from where his saloon is. He also roped them himself, which basically what you do is you attach a rope to a tree, then you attach it to the alligator. And once an alligator kind of gets caught, it starts to spin, so it'll spin itself up against the tree, and that's when you tape its mouth and then, pull it. So that's what he did. And there's a lot of correspondence when it comes to these actual alligator pits, because he built a giant fence around it, but people would come and feed the alligators like stray cats, stray dogs, as entertainment, as paid entertainment. But that's where the whole alligator man thing comes in. I'll kind of touch base on that at the end. In 1934, Joe becomes involved with a woman, and her name is Minnie Gothard. She's one of his barmaids. But by the summer of 1937, he is involved with Buddy and Shatsy. These are Dolores Goodwin and Hazel Brown. They're also barmaids at his bar. Well, Joe would go on to marry Dolores in September of 1937, and by this time, Minnie disappears. So, apparently, him and Minnie went to a beach, and they were driven by his chauffeur, who was an African American at the time. So, they're driven to the beach. Him and Minnie get out, and he tells the chauffeur to stay. So him and Minnie, they go swimming, and then they start watching the sunset. And apparently, this is when Joe shoots her in the back of the head. He then gets a chauffeur, makes his chauffeur help him dig a hole and bury a body in it. This happens in June of 1937. And this is a few months before he marries Dolores. But after he marries Dolores, Dolores finds out because he tells her what he did to Minnie. And then Dolores goes and tells Hazel. But what she doesn't know is that Hazel is Joe's mistress. She's the other woman. So basically, she's just telling another party that's involved with this man that's just murdered their friend. You know what I mean? So by September of 1938, both Dolores and Hazel go missing. There's rumors that go around town that Dolores was missing a good chunk of her arm. And the rumors around town is that one of the alligators ate it. But that's not true. So what happened is that Dolores lost part of her arm because it was ripped off by a fence. And this is when she was on a vehicle. So she had her arm out and it was ripped off by a fence because it was hit the right way. So she was a woman that was like, you knew it was her kind of instantly. Like everybody knew that she was missing part of her arm. And she was a very nice woman from what I read. Very nice. So let's kind of go back to Hazel a little bit. So Hazel fell in love with a new suitor in August of 1938. So this is 2 months after Joe kills Minnie. Hazel's now seeing a new man. And this man promised her a better life. So Hazel then tells Joe that she wants to leave. He refuses to let her leave. So Hazel then threatens him with the information she has about Minnie. But according to Joe's associate, his name is Clifton Wheeler, who becomes more of a prominent thing in this case. Clifton Wheeler says this is when Joe shoots her to death. Clifton also went to tell, after he was kind of implicated in all this, he comes forward and he tells them that this is when they dismembered her body and they put her body in the San Antonio River. So these disappearances prompted a visit and prompted the police to gather evidence against Joe. So they gathered enough evidence to go and visit him to arrest him. And it said when they arrive, obviously the police have their evidence. They're ready to arrest him. One of the police, actually both of them that show up are his friends. One of them is John Clevenhagen, who Joe actually goes hunting with. So he knows them very well. So they make him outside and they tell him what's going on, that they're here to arrest him. They're here to arrest him with the connections to Minnie, Dolores, and Hazel's disappearances. So Joe tells him, all right, that's fine. Let me go close up the cash register and then we can go. So he goes inside. Now, mind you, the cash register is against the wall. But what they don't realize is that his handgun is inside of the register. Now, his friends are behind him. So it's a really quick thought process apparently for him, because what he decides to do is pivot himself to turn towards the cops and then shoot himself in the heart. That way, the bullet goes into the wall behind him and not into his friends. Because apparently, now this is from what a family member of his, like a relative of his, has said, is that he believes that because the cops were his friends, he didn't want to shoot himself in the heart and have the bullet hit one of his friends. So that's why he turned around, shot himself, and it went into the wall. Which was actually kind of nice of him to do, but I mean, so basically, in a nutshell, after he commits suicide, Clifton Wheeler comes back into the picture and he tells authorities about what happened to Minnie and Hazel, and he leads them to their bodies. They literally have to dig a 15-foot hole to get to Minnie's body because she's down so far. So this leaves Dolores. Like, where's Dolores? Well, they find her. She's in San Diego with her sister. She's alive and well. She's just living away from her husband. So Clifton Wheeler ended up going to jail for several years because of his involvement, but he would eventually be released and he would open a tavern of his own. So this story, there's a large tale of, and a large lot of people that think he took the bodies and fed them to his alligators. This is not true. This is an exaggerated story, an exaggerated form of the story that basically states that there is as many as 12 people, but up to 20 people that Joe killed, dismembered, and threw to his alligators so they could eat them. No. Now, any descendant of Joe Ball that lives in Elmendorf or around the area, they try to correct people in the way that they think when it comes to the story and the Ball family in Elmendorf, because the Ball family is still very important to Elmendorf history because they helped incorporate the town. And just because one was a bad seed doesn't mean it taints the rest of the family. And as time goes on, people add to this story and people make it worse than what it really is. Basically, it was a man that was in love with 3 women. He marries one after he kills one, and then he ends up killing the other one because he's now lost the other 2, basically. You know what I mean? So that, my friends, is the case of Joe Ball. I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys tomorrow in another video. Bye, guys.